Good evening. I'd like to call the board budget workshop to order. It's about 6:04. And I'd like to turn it over to the finance committee for any additional questions. But before we do that, I know that we have been fielding questions as to why we are in this place and why we are talking about reallocating some funds. And it has been for us a long process. It's been over the last several years. When we were doing our superintendent search, we surveyed our community and they told us that they had a high level of concern about our special education programs. So we started to take a hard look at what we were doing. Darlene King came in, did an audit of the services that we were offering at the time and made recommendations to us. And one of them was to establish the position of Director of Pupil Personnel Services. We did that in the following budget, and much work has been done. And we now know what we need to do to provide a continuum of services for the students in the special education realm. That's not optional. It's federal law, it's state law, it's our policy. And so we have to make the accommodation to provide these services. So that's what brought us here. That's one of the reasons. And when we talk about reallocation for programs, that's specifically what we're talking about. So what we're trying to do is put together a budget that fits within the money that we have and provides the necessary programs for all students. So that being said, I know that one of the things, I wasn't here at the last meeting, and one of the things I asked about when I came back, I was talking to Mrs. McGregor, is that we had put in some money for a CSD chairperson. And I know that I wanted to know if that was still somewhere, you know, whether it was covered by a grant or not. And apparently it's not, but I do think it's something that we need to really consider, seeing if there's some way to do this, because it's another support to these programs.
And so it's not in the general fund. Karen and I have talked about this recently. We have had the opportunity, it's not a large grant, but we have the opportunity to apply for an additional grant recently. So, you know, there may be some, you know, we also just need to, as long as everybody is aware that New York State, our representatives have not, they have not passed the budget yet. I was at a superintendent's meeting today. We have a lobbyist who works on the behalf of Witchley BOCES and the schools in our consortium. She was there. There is not an indication that school funds are in jeopardy as they're trying to do their final balancing. But, you know, again, that is something that we have to be careful about making promises about. So there is a possibility that we may be able to look at once all is said and done, is because we have, I think, some of that additional grant was about 45,000, but I don't, we have to look at what the eligibility is. So we're in the process of doing some application. So there may be a possibility for a stipended position, but not a full administrative type of position, but looking at, you know, again, supporting those efforts and making sure that some of the programming that we are adding, and some of the supports and professional development that we would like to give all of our teachers, because some of this is, you know, going to be part of the full continuum affects not only special education teachers, but regular education teachers as well. So, you know, in order to do all those things, that is a heavy lift, and having some additional support and being able to run our meetings and accomplish all these things, that it may be helpful to have that stipend in person, you know, available, whether it's one or two people. So we'd have to look at that and then talk to WADA about, you know, how that might work. I see that if it is a possibility, but it would look different than how it's looked in the past.
So I do think to supervise the initiation of 2 new classrooms, which will be high-new classrooms. You know, it's gonna require a lot of oversight and supervision and interaction, so bringing up some of that other work, you can't ride 2 horses.
Right, right.
So I think it would be important to try and find a way to do that.
Okay. We will keep you posted once we kind of get through the next few weeks and we can,
Yeah.
have a better idea.
And what the numbers are.
Right.
Does anybody else have any other questions or concerns about the budget? I know that we talked about 3 different scenarios. What are people's thoughts about how you want to move forward?
I guess I'll just say, seeing some of the sizes of the elementary class levels, I know we've talked about that. And if there was a way, I think there could be a way if we went with the 0% tax levy. It would also, I recognize that we have, some specific language that would have to do in the proposition. But maybe we can have some other language in the newsletter to make it clear what that means. And then also just outline, this is a special, it would require the supermajority. If not, here's what would happen. Here's the next step down, and then unfortunately, the contingency is a possibility. But I think this community has supported education, and it wouldn't mean an increase for taxpayers, is my understanding of that. When there are other increases, in town taxes, we could be in one area, but maybe it's not. So that's just my thoughts.
And, I do hear you on that, and I do hear,
Yeah.
to take a look at that. But for me, it's still an issue of, it's a position that we've added in, and we may not have the
Yeah.
ability to sustain it, because we were using one-shot money to pay for a recurring expense. So I'm still concerned that even if we try to eke it out,
Do it.
we still may not be able to maintain it, and that's still, at what cost? So I don't know but I mean,
Yeah.
that's the one side,
Sure.
the flip, so, that would be one.
Good to have
Yeah.
different perspectives.
Sure. I personally, I know that it's a hard decision, and it has been, I've given it a lot of, head time thinking about it. But I do think that one of the things that we are charged with is, creating a balanced budget that comes in under the tax cap. We understand what we need to do to get there. I do believe that it's doable, and I think I personally, want to stay with that scenario 1, where it keeps us at minus 2.1 and, or minus 2.9, excuse me, and, try to build back as we can afford it. Peter, do you have any thoughts?
I hear what Ann is saying, that Ann, I tend to agree with you. This is not a position that any of us want to be in. And it's a position that is really none of our making, but now it's our job to fill the holes in. And I think that, again, my biggest concern that if we go out and ask for even at 0%, the language that shows up on that proposition is going to be extremely off-putting. And to get that majority, it's a crapshoot. If you don't get it, chance of getting a second referendum, second budget passed is remarkably low historically in this state. So the option then is certainly not what anybody wants to look at. So I would tend to agree that the, say with the tax cap levy is as the minus 2.9.
Mrs. McGregor, if we go to contingency, then we have to take a look at, what we are required to have in a budget, and discretionary and non-discretionary money becomes an option, and things like sports and extracurricular activities are discretionary money, and they would have to be scrutinized.
Everything would have.
Everything would have to be. Um,
As I brought up last time, it's not the same zero as if you just went out in a budget year as a 0%. There are restrictions.
to those numbers.
Well, and if you look at the language, it's been in every newsletter, it says that we can't exceed last year's 0, but it may be less. So we may find that we're back to the negative 2.91
Or lower.
or lower,
Right. Which is right, because we have to,
because you have to go through. And it's the board's discretion as well to justify any expenditure.
Maybe, what do you think?
I mean, the fear of the contingency definitely worries me, discretionary money versus non-discretionary. If we have to start cutting sports, we have to start cutting extracurriculars, those kind of things. I see Dan's point too. But I also see your point is, can we continue this? And we don't know that we can. So we have to stick it to the 2.9.
So Dan,
No, I mean, um, I guess that's just my
No,
feeling.
I-
I hear what you're saying too. We talked a lot last night about differing opinions and civilities. And that was just my concern, and I kind of wanted to state it and hear what other people were thinking, rather than just kind of say, oh, this is what we have to do.
Well,
And
I think the problem here with the contingency is people think that, okay, so if we go contingent and we stay at 0, we get an extra 148,000 to add to expenditure. But that is not
Correct.
necessarily true. We can
No.
actually decrease what we're taking from our revenues, keeping it flat. You know what I mean? So that
no, the
'Cause you can't-
contingency is not, Right.
adding to it,
yeah.
right? So if this were to go down and everybody thinks that it gets us a bump, it really doesn't, and it would actually decrease.
the
expenditure.
contingency 0.
Correct.
Right, so again, it's not the same 0.
Right.
It's, right, and that,
Speaking to the contingency.
right, but I think there is, if you don't know the details of contingency, it's easy to think that it's just
Adding
a
to the
0.
expenditure and it-
Right.
Right, that's not
It's
necessary.
not. I know,
It's
it can really cause
complicated.
havoc in a budget. Yeah.
It's complicated.
So at this point, I think we have our numbers as much as we can, because we don't have the firm numbers from the state. We don't
And
have.
that's scary. In my 14 years, have never gone this far without having the state number. So I'm a little nervous myself. I'm hoping you just, we haven't even had a chance to
Right, I
talk.
haven't seen her in 2 days, I'm writing her a note.
Yeah, I'm like, what'd you learn? So I really don't know, and our business special meeting Friday's canceled because we have no news. So,
Yeah,
Well, I
I
know
mean, they're optimistic, but.
Julie and I have been to a couple of workshops, meetings, et cetera, and I don't know about you, but I have not been very optimistic with what I've heard from the BOCES people, the school board people, about these piles of money being thrown our way. It sounds to me like we're being asked to tighten the belt up a little bit more, and hope that next year things get better, which is not, it's not a nice thing to hear.
Really, the next few years, they say this may. The suggestion has been from the financial people from NISCUS, NISBA, and ASBO, which is the School Board Officials Association. So they have, their lobbyists and their specialists, and that we need to be preparing for the next few years. So Foundation Aid is fully funded, and, you know, aside, there's not anticipated increases to in the next few years especially. So this is what we'll be getting for the next few years. We don't have, and there was a cautionary tale, if your enrollment is not increasing, which ours is decreasing. And, you know, and our tax base is not increasing, it's flat, it's a 0.0. Our factor is 0.0011, so that's 0.1% increase in the tax base, which is basically zero. So we have those two factors, and so, you know, we do have to think about sustainability. Karen and I have been talking about, we're making preparations to take this budget and then work and, give the board a multi-year plan, so that we can really start looking forward. As you know, I've talked about this before. I've talked to the faculty and staff about, you know, if this is a difficult situation, hindsight's 2020, we can look back and try to figure out all of the ways that things that could have gone differently. But what we need to focus on, in my opinion, is how to be more, to know where we're going in the next few years, to stay ahead of it the best we can, right? That's always a projection. We project certain types of increases, but I think having a multi-year plan, we're setting ourselves up with some tools through ASBO and through some of our systems that we have access to, and we should be able then to take this budget and project it. So that will help us. You know, sustainability is very important, and really just being cautious the next few years and making sure decisions we're making now are sustainable.
Something else that I didn't have my chance to talk with Sean Crucial was in today to start our preliminary budget.
Our auditor,
Yeah,
auditor.
audit procedure, and I'm thinking budget, he did say that although maybe not other districts are at a negative, this was an anomaly for us for the tax levy, that many districts are feeling the tightness of what's happening with the grants going away. And simply not. They just got 9 new schools because of other auditors going out and our recommendation. So he's seeing a lot of the business officials and a lot of new districts, and he said they're all good. So, not that that's comforting, but it's, we're not alone. And speaking of that, you guys should all be getting letters in your email from them.
Everybody else did, but I did not.
I forwarded it to you.
Yes, I did see your folder.
So it should be attached there.
If you didn't get it, email me and I'll have them send it to you.
I'll double check.
Okay, it could be, there was an error originally in your email address, and that's been corrected, but if he
Had the old.
had it from last year
We
when,
had your Gmail one,
Yeah,
was the one
that's-
that I saw,
Yeah.
and then, but I forwarded it, I think, to your.
I see it.
we should tell him, Karen, to update his email list and make sure we got the right.
I thought it was funny.
Did it look like that? I didn't
Yeah.
open it.
Yeah, it did look like spam.
All right, so next steps then, we'll stay with the allowable, so tomorrow, will be our special meeting where we will have the propositions.
Adopt the budget and create the proposition.
Yes. And, then moving forward, we'll have our hearing, May 9th, correct? May 9th.
So at this point, is there? Thank you for taking the time tonight to be here to rethink this and include me in the process. I appreciate that. Thank you for that opportunity and everybody. Come on.
Thank you. If you could all just check in, I don't know if Gina checked in with you, but just a question about our meeting time, start time for